When I settled into this new neighborhood, I anticipated some peace and quiet, never expecting to find myself in an all-out battle with an HOA that acted like they owned me. The moment I rolled in with my Porsche, Karen, the self-proclaimed vice president, decided I was her enemy. She slapped me with fines, threatened me, and insisted I didn't belong. Things spiraled out of control quickly, beginning with threats and evolving into vandalism. Eventually, they even sent fake HOA cops to steal my car. What they didn't realize was that I'm a U.S. Marshal, and I don't take threats lightly. As we launch into this saga, tell me where you're watching from. I'm curious to see how far this tale travels. Upon moving to Oakfield Estates, a picture-perfect suburban neighborhood boasting manicured lawns and kids on bikes, I thought I'd found a peaceful home. Everything seemed idyllic, but we all know perfection can be misleading, and I learned that lesson vividly. The first person I encountered was Sandra Holt, the HOA vice president. She greeted me with a smile so synthetic, it ought to have come with a warning. "We uphold standards here," she remarked, staring at me like I was already trouble. From that initial moment, her disdain was palpable. Why? Because I was a challenge she couldn't control. The fines began almost straight away. The first notice claimed my Porsche was parked incorrectly, even though it was in my own driveway. The second fussed over my grass length. I had just trimmed it 2 days prior. Then came the complaint about my trash bins, which I had pulled in exactly 1 hour after pickup. At the next HOA meeting, I tried reasoning with them. Sandra was perched at the head of the table, flanked by her loyal board. I laid my stack of fines in front of her. "Sandra, I'm not sure what game you're playing, but I've adhered to every rule. These fines are ludicrous." She smirked, tapping her pen. "Rules are rules. If you can't abide by them, maybe this community isn't the right fit for you." There it was, veiled hostility masquerading as advice. I kept calm, but in my gut, I sensed this was just the beginning. A week passed, and harassment escalated. One morning, I stepped outside to head to work and froze. My tires, the entire set, were slashed, each sidewall jagged with damage, and a note tucked beneath my windshield wiper. "Next time, we'll take it." Chills shot through me. This wasn't just about unruly trash cans or overgrown grass anymore. This was intimidation, criminal, cold, and personal. I documented everything. Photos of the cuts, the note, timestamps from my doorbell camera, and reported it to the sheriff's office. But I knew the HOA had influential friends. And Sandra would play the innocent card. Still, that note revealed their intentions. Sandra and her little regime weren't going to let up until they crushed me or scared me away. What she didn't know was that I was trained for people like her. I don't easily scare or back down. But even I couldn't foresee just how far she would push things. Refusing to let the slashed tires go unchallenged, I meticulously recorded everything. I filed a police report with Deputy Morales, implicating every detail. He took it seriously, but warned me. "These folks aren't amateurs if they're escalating. Keep your cameras on high alert." I did just that. At the next HOA meeting, I presented my police report and photo evidence. Sandra Holt maintained her air of superiority, her lips curved in that same manufactured smile. "So, someone slashed your tires? How unfortunate," she sneered. "But you're only making enemies by putting your neighbors on blast. Or you're creating victims by choosing to ignore it," I shot back, bringing the room to an uneasy hush. A few fellow residents shifted uncomfortably. I even caught an older neighbor subtly nodding in agreement. Fear was the common language shared in that room. Sandra neither confirmed nor denied anything, wielding ambiguity like a weapon. I bolstered my home security. Motion lights, additional cameras targeting the driveway, all backed up in the cloud. These cameras weren't for paranoia, but for proof. Something to capture the truth in case Sandra's little empire attempted to erase their tracks. The next incident unfolded under the bright sun. At 2:14 p.m., my front camera sent an alert to my phone. Motion had been detected. I checked the feed and felt that primal urge rise within. There it was, a white SUV parked in my driveway. 3 men emerged, sporting reflective vests emblazoned with the letters HOA Security. One brandished a hefty tow hook and a toolbox. They wasted no time, approaching my Porsche as if it were theirs to seize, unclipping my license plate and preparing to hook it to a flatbed. No knocking, no inquiries, just the smooth efficiency of men on a mission. I stepped onto the porch, hands clasped behind my back with my fingers curling around the grip of a service pistol I carried concealed. A precaution, not an act of aggression. I calmly approached, eyes trained on the men as they began to affix the towing apparatus. "Hey!" I proclaimed firmly, ensuring my voice cut through the afternoon heat. 2 heads jerked upward. The lead man, smirking like he held all the authority, declared, "Official HOA enforcement. You're in violation. We're impounding the vehicle." "Impersonating what authority?" I queried, maintaining my composure as I walked closer. The sound of my boots against the porch created an uncomfortable cadence amidst the tension. One of the men flashed a cheap, laminated badge. Disguised as official, it could barely withstand the sunlight. I halted 3 paces before them and slowly revealed the badge clipped inside my jacket, exposing the U.S. Marshal star at my waist. Their smiles evaporated. I subtly adjusted my jacket, letting the grip of my concealed firearm be seen just enough to send a clear message. I was armed, trained, and far from foolish. Initially, they laughed off my presence. The guy with the tow hook scoffed, "You're not a cop." I maintained my calm demeanor while projecting confidence. "Try me," I replied with a low yet firm tone. The lead man hesitated, while the other tightened his grip on the towing devices. Tension mounted like a guitar string pulled to its limit. My driveway camera recorded the entire moment, wide angle, high definition, complete with timestamps. Every notion, every interaction, every frantically grasped fake badge captured in real time. The men could have retreated. They could have feigned ignorance and left. But together, they exchanged glances and twitched their fingers on their tools. This scene had derailed from mere fines and notices. This was theft in progress, and the camera would reveal everything that followed. I calmly instructed them, "Drop the tools, walk away." They laughed once more. And that laugh would be the last thing they ever kept. If you're enjoying this HOA saga, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's much more to come. The lead man, crowbar glimmering as if he were a hero in his own twisted story, took a menacing step forward. I didn't hesitate. My training kicked in. Instinct and skill took precedence over anger. The thug swung the crowbar toward my ribs in a wide, calculated attempt to incapacitate. I stepped into the motion, executing the U.S. Marshal's training until it became second nature. A deflect, a turn, a single, perfectly aimed shot to halt the attack without delivering a fatal blow. He collapsed, groaning, the shot hitting him in the thigh. Not lethal, but enough to give me precious time. The other 2 charged at me with bravado fueled by their foolish confidence. Instinct took over once more. I advanced, disarming one by executing a wrist lock, twisting his arm until I heard the sickening crack of bone. His scream echoed down the street as he crumpled. The third man lunged at me. I used my shoulder to slam him back and introduced his head to the pavement until he stopped moving. It was over in mere seconds that felt like an eternity. My driveway cam captured everything. Timestamps, audio, high-definition details of the fake badges and HOA insignia. Neighbors flooded the street, their phones raised and wide eyes reflecting disbelief. The downed assailant was wailing, while the other 2 writhed in pain. 3 minutes later, Sheriff Morales's cruiser arrived, sirens piercing the midday calm. Deputies quickly secured the situation and called for medics. I presented my Marshal credentials with no flair. They had already begun streaming the footage on an officer's tablet as evidence. The deputies handcuffed the trio, seizing crowbars, tow chains, fake badges, and jackets. Paramedics treated the injured. One person needed surgery for a severed femoral artery, but would pull through. Sheriff's investigators rushed up my driveway, glued to their screens, analyzing the playback stored in my cloud backups. Each frame was damning evidence. Within 48 hours, a paper trail emerged. Bank transfers, Venmo payments, and text threads linked the hires to Sandra Holt. One of the messages read, "Handle the Porsche, teach him to leave," signed with her initials. The district attorney moved forward with a whole stack of charges against them. Attempted grand theft auto, impersonating law enforcement, assault with a deadly weapon, conspiracy to commit a felony. The three thugs faced indictment, while Sandra found herself arrested on charges pertaining to solicitation and conspiracy. The trial was unforgiving. The video evidence was relentless. Neighbors testified about the fines, the slashed tires, and Sandra's threats. The jury deliberated for little time before reaching their verdict. Sandra was ultimately convicted of conspiracy, solicitation, and HOA fraud, receiving a sentence of 30 months in state prison, alongside a hefty $150,000 restitution owed to me for damages, and an additional $50,000 civil penalty payable to the county for misusing her HOA authority. The three hired men admitted guilt for impersonating an officer and attempted grand theft, with each one dealing with prison time and restitution obligations. The HOA itself collapsed. Board members resigned. Civil suits multiplied. Bylaws were overhauled, and a court-appointed receiver took over as new leaders were elected. My civil suit for harassment and damages settled for $75,000, plus attorney fees. Sandra's house went into lien and subsequent sale to satisfy the judgments against her. I securely backed up the footage in 3 separate locations and deleted nothing. I remained in my home. My Porsche stood ominously in the driveway. They believed I was just another neighbor they could intimidate, but little did they know I'm a U.S. Marshal, and they certainly learned a hard truth about confronting someone like me.